Welcome back to On Track GP, I'm Jamie Chambers. For all the talk of Max Verstappen and Red Bull dominance, the 2023 F1 season has thrown up some odd moments. From romance rumours to multi-car crashes and everything in between, it is not often you see all of this in a typical F1 season. As we wind down for the winter break, On Track GP has taken a look at some of the stranger moments to have happened this season. Zhou Guanyu recorded the first fastest lap of the season. The 2023 Alfa Romeo car and the word fast are not two things that have been associated together all that often this year. After having a strong start to 2022, Alfa failed to produce the same kind of performance this time round and find themselves second last in the constructors' standings ahead of only AlphaTauri. And yet, the fastest man in the opening race in Bahrain? Zhou Guanyu. With Pierre Gasly in possession of the extra point with a time of 1:38.68, Alfa opted to pit Zhou with 2 laps to go, and the moment the Chinese driver delivered a flying lap that was actually picked up on TV cameras, as it just so happened to be behind Fernando Alonso, who had just returned to the podium after 2 years. Red flag records in Australia. The Australian Grand Prix saw a record 3 red flag periods, including 2 red flag periods during just 4 laps of the race. The FIA race controls seemed to be determined to see a winner other than Max Verstappen or to allow a finish under green. Fans gained access to the circuit with only 3 laps remaining, mistakenly believing the race was over. However, the race had a standing restart for a 2-lap sprint. The field would only make it 2 corners before a massive wreck forced the final red flag. There were 2 safety cars, 3 red flags and 8 drivers unable to finish the race, almost 15% of the overall DNFs of 2023. That was all before Verstappen managed to claim victory in rather controversial circumstances. Alonso is a Swifty. One of the stranger rumours from 2023 was whether Fernando Alonso was romantically linked with Taylor Swift or not. Bad blood is an apt description for many parts of Alonso's career, but it took on a new meaning when the Aston Martin driver was romantically linked to Taylor Swift. The rumours circulated after Swift's breakup from long-term partner Joe Alwyn, and in Alonso's trademark coy way, he was not one to rubbish the speculation. In the end, it proved to be just that, but for a while it seemed like we may have another famous face in the F1 paddock. Near miss in the Azerbaijan pit lane. There was an incredibly close near miss during the Azerbaijan Grand Prix as Alpine's Esteban Ocon pitted on the race's final lap. Ocon's strategy saw him pit right at the end of the race, as F1 rules mandate every driver must use 2 different tyre compounds during a race, meaning everyone must stop at least once during a Grand Prix. People were already assembling around the podium Parc Fermé area to greet the top 3 finishers. Ocon had no idea what he was driving into at Baku's circuit, as it has a blind entry, and he nearly ploughed into people absent-mindedly walking across the pit lane. Track limits take centre stage. Track limits became the focal point of the weekend in Austria, notably at turn 10, posing a significant challenge to drivers to stay within bounds. Qualifying hinted at issues with Sergio Perez amongst those penalised for exceeding track limits. However, the race provided even more controversy. During the race, penalties were announced, setting the stage for a post-drama race. Aston Martin promptly protested, citing overlooked infringements. Stewards acknowledged over 1,200 instances for scrutiny. Eventually, a cascade of new penalties emerged, affecting Carlos Sainz, Lewis Hamilton, Pierre Gasly and Esteban Ocon, the latter enduring a 30-second penalty. The decision, taking 4 hours to unveil, caught Lando Norris off guard. Having moved up to P4 after Sainz's penalty, Norris had already been back in the UK before he found out what had happened. Felipe Massa wants to change history. One unusual off-track incident this year involved Felipe Massa considering legal action concerning the 2008 championship. Lewis Hamilton clinched the title that year, aided partly by the notorious Crashgate scandal at Renault. Initially, FIA and F1 officials claimed ignorance of the incident and any hint that cheating had occurred, until after the season-ending prize ceremony. However, Bernie Ecclestone's inadvertent revelation in a recent interview resurrected the issue. Ecclestone's statement implied prior knowledge during the 2008 season, leading Massa to contemplate a potential case based on this revelation. Nick de Vries fired after 10 races. Many want to see Sergio Perez replaced with a more competent and competitive driver to challenge Verstappen, but AlphaTauri driver Nick de Vries was the latest driver in the Red Bull system to get the axe. The Dutch driver wasn't just any rookie, as the Formula 2 and Formula E champion earned the seat through an impressive outing acting as reserve driver for Williams during the 2022 Italian Grand Prix. The other AlphaTauri seat. AlphaTauri had 3 different drivers alongside Yuki Tsunoda this season. Once Nick de Vries was disposed of after 10 races and Daniel Ricciardo stepping in only to break his wrist and step back out for rookie Liam Lawson. New Zealander Lawson's excellent performance made it tough for Ricciardo to return, but when he did, he put his car 4th on the grid in Mexico and finished 7th. His performances since have not been quite as strong. Lawrence Stroll wants a knighthood. Speaking of off-track moments, the usually vocal Lawrence Stroll has been rather quiet this season, but there was one notable line this season. For a man who previously recorded a video angrily denying any accusations of copying, this time he was a little bit more subdued when he suggested that he should be knighted for his work in saving one of Britain's most iconic brands, Aston Martin. "I should be knighted for what I've done," he declared. "I've saved thousands of jobs and built a new Formula 1 factory with hundreds of millions of investment." While Canada is part of the Commonwealth, Mr. Stroll faces a setback as Canadians are ineligible to receive knighthoods. Mercedes crash in Qatar. If ever there was a reminder of Barcelona 2016, this was it. For Lewis Hamilton, the Qatar Grand Prix must have felt similar to the infamous Mercedes collision 7 years ago. With Mercedes locking down 2nd and 3rd on the grid, George Russell and the 7-time world champion appeared poised to cause trouble for Max Verstappen. Instead, the only damage was self-inflicted as the 2 Mercedes collided at turn 1, sending Hamilton into the gravel and ruining any possibility of a victory for Russell. Canadian Bird tries to stop Verstappen. It was always going to take some form of outside intervention to prevent Max Verstappen from losing another race over this season. The last time the reigning world champion was nearly defeated was during the Canadian Grand Prix, when a bird lodged itself into one of the brake ducts on Verstappen's RB19. The temperature on the brake increased, but it wasn't enough for it to fail, and Verstappen was still able to win the race. Chaos at the Dutch Grand Prix. It all started in the opening laps when rain came down and some drivers pitted for intermediates and got a massive undercut. The wet-dry-wet pattern was effectively matched by how hectic the race was. With the arrival of rain effectively at lights out and the shuffling of the pack that came with it succeeded by a spell of relative calm. Until all hell broke loose inside the final 10 laps with the arrival of a much heavier shower than was first predicted, as Zhou Guanyu speared into the barriers and the race was forced to be red flagged. Sao Paulo weather. Speaking of weather, a storm in Sao Paulo during the end of Friday qualifying caused the session to come to a halt, and Fernando Alonso exclaimed, "It's night time." The final session of qualifying featured a drastic change in weather, which went from cloudy skies to full-on grey. It was so dark that if you were only just tuning in, you'd have been forgiven for thinking it was a night race. Along with the dark skies, heavy winds, torrential rain and thunder and lightning that hit the track as the orange weather warning issued for the surrounding area of Sao Paulo came into full effect. After the first few laps were set and Max Verstappen topped the timesheets, the session was eventually stopped as conditions dramatically worsened. Valtteri Bottas's calendar. Valtteri Bottas amassed $150,000 for Movember, a men's health charity, through the sale of his Bottas 2024 calendar. Featuring revealing photos, the calendar quickly sold its initial 10,000 copies, contributing $5.46 for each sale towards prostate cancer research. Bottas expressed gratitude for the overwhelming support, announcing the significant funds raised for Movember. The collaboration between Bottas and photographer Paul Ripke stemmed from a photo taken by Bottas's partner, Tiffany Cromwell, capturing him in Aspen, Colorado. This popular Instagram image was sold to charity, sparking the calendar concept that proved immensely successful in fundraising efforts. A tough race in Qatar. A flat-out race in Qatar due to limits on tyre stints and the high-speed track led to a massive challenge for the drivers. In Qatar, daytime temperatures exceeded 40 degrees, which would have placed it as around the second hottest race of all time. The race didn't get started until 8 PM and the temperature was still incredibly high, never dropping below 36 degrees. Esteban Ocon threw up in his helmet and Logan Sargent couldn't finish the race. Luckily, Qatar will take place in December next year, so it should be slightly cooler. Andretti to join Formula 1. Andretti Cadillac has been approved by the FIA, but Formula 1 itself still needs to sign off on the addition of an 11th team. And that means F1 Chief Executive Stefano Domenicali and Chief Stakeholder Liberty Media Head Greg Maffei. Andretti is working towards a goal of entering Formula 1 as early as 2025. The existing teams want their patience and commitment to F1 over the years to be recognised. For Andretti to join the grid for $200 million and immediately have an asset that could be worth close to $1 billion would leave a sour taste for those who have stuck around and invested heavily in the sport for so long. Lando smashes the trophy. Whilst Lando Norris has produced some incredible performances throughout 2023 on the track, he also has given us some hilarious moments off it. The Brits seemingly decided at the Hungarian Grand Prix that Verstappen had too many trophies at home and decided to do him a favour. His classic podium celebration of banging his champagne bottle on the ground caused the Dutchman's $45,000 first place trophy to topple over, breaking it in multiple pieces. It was replaced thankfully, and it's fair to say Norris has been more careful with his future podiums during the season. Carlos Sainz and the Manhole cover. The first F1 race weekend on the famous strip was blindsided after Esteban Ocon ran over a water valve cover, with his Alpine lifting it proud of the resurfaced asphalt. His Alpine sustained damage and a yellow flag was waved, but Carlos Sainz still clattered over the loose cover. Ferrari were forced to replace the survival cell, internal combustion engine, energy store, and control electronics, which were damaged beyond repair following an impact from a foreign object. Sainz was given a 10-place grid penalty for the Las Vegas Grand Prix for using a third energy store which is outside of his permitted allocation, possibly the biggest miscarriage of the rules this season. Floods across northern Italy. On a more sombre note, the Emiliano-Romagna Grand Prix cancellation marked this season's lowest point, not due to the race's absence but the tragic toll on people's lives from torrential rain and floods. Lives lost and displaced families highlight a stark reality beyond Formula One. While the sport holds significance, it pales in comparison to life's greater concerns. It's a sobering reminder of what is truly important amidst our sporting interests. And that is our roundup of the worst and weirdest moments of 2023. There is no doubt we'll be discussing more of these during the off-season. What were your weirdest moments of the season? What are you hoping doesn't happen in 2024? Did you buy a Bottas calendar? Let us know what you think in the comments, and remember to like, comment, share and subscribe. This has been On Track GP. I've been Jamie Chambers. Keep the pedal to the metal, and I'll catch you in the next video.